story. For sure.
Oh, good. Okay, so I didn't record all that, so that's good because it went a little
good.
Okay, so hi.
Hey, how are you? I printed out what you gave me,
Oh yeah,
but I didn't do much with it.
That's fine. I didn't need you to, and I really found out, or just sort of, what we had our Zoom class last night, and it was brought up that in the last, this is officially our last, but we can talk about if you want to continue.
Okay.
But let me find it too. And that in the last, I'm supposed to have some sense of, evaluation from you, but that it doesn't need to be anything formal, and it can just be a few words at the end, and it's not a big deal. But of course, excuse me. I just thought, well, let's get some maybe categories that you'd want to reflect on. So, and that's fine. And we can talk about that later. But no big deal. It's just good, it's not about me being graded. It's about I want feedback,
Yeah. Yeah.
The teacher said, well, she's your friend. She's going to give you good feedback. And I'm like, well, I hope honest feedback. So.
Okay, I can do that too.
Absolutely. So.
You're able to handle that.
I hope. Yeah, I can handle it.
Mm-hmm.
But let's start with you first.
Okay.
Feedback seems like an ending thing.
I'm distracted because I can't find today's paper calendar, but I will find it after we talk. Because we don't need it. It's just when you realize you left your wallet somewhere.
Oh, now you're okay. Yeah. Well,
it's just a paper calendar, so I'm okay.
And what do you need it for? Is that
just today? I know what my schedule is, but I like to. Yeah, I just like looking at it.
So I know what you mean. You want to look at it, and right now you don't know what the rest of your day looks like, and it's.
Even though I do know, it's always easy just to glance to make sure I'm not forgetting something. I'm because it feels like I'm here right now. I know this is on my calendar, and it's ridiculous not to stay here because I'm worried about what's next.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. I need to be present. I know I've got 2 blocks after this flexibility.
That's why I mentioned it, because that could have gone a couple of ways. That could have been you want to go look for it, or it could have been well, just let it go. But let's talk about what happens when when we're somewhere else in the next step of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because I actually am struggling to clear myself for my sessions. I think the clients I have today I don't anticipate my sessions with them because I'm not worried about my performance or what's going to happen. I'm okay. It's just I read something personally that my sister wrote, and I'm there still. And so
I've been wondering about that, and
I just read it today. I put it off.
Okay.
But I shouldn't have read it this morning.
Okay.
I haven't time to process it. So it's sitting right. It's all here.
I saw it too, and of course we'll take that offline, and I'm here if you want to talk.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't even know all the story. So that's the hard part.
Okay. Ooh, that is hard. And also, where is she? Are you the 18-month older than her, or are you?
I'm the oldest girl, second born.
Oh, okay. So there's a big division. I'm the
sibling. When you think of it's not like I was pushed away.
Yeah. Got it.
I hear it. Yeah, so I wasn't any of them people mentioned there, but I was the one who practically raised her because my mom disconnected. Okay. And And I actually probably went to grad school to be away from a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's always so interesting. I mean, I wonder how we can wrap this into supervision. Of course we can, but like, I love and adore you, known you a long time, but I don't know details. And sometimes, you know what I mean? And it's like, for whatever reason, that's just not relevant. But when I read that, I thought, well, good for Shia, but also it's kind of, there's a lot of revealing a lot without your consent.
Mm.
I don't know if that's where you're sitting with, so I don't want to put that in you, but
No, besides, there's no real connection to us because our names are entirely different.
I know that's true. But people
Mhm.
who know you both know you.
Yeah. Well, it's mostly, I wish we could talk about it now. I don't respond to it on Facebook.
No.
No, but I know it impacted my other sister in a deep way.
Mm,
And I just can't put little words in a response. I'd rather talk to
no.
her
I know.
about
Well, I saw
that
that you
stuff.
hadn't responded, but I didn't know if you'd been on Facebook or not. But it's
Mhm.
interesting. Um, I mean, I totally get where she was coming from, like showing bravery, and
Mhm.
and I know it's hard. I think well, as far as it goes, as far as like a story like that can be connected to or relevant to therapy.
Yeah.
Here's my little tip for the day. A tool for the day. I have noticed, and you may experience this less with kids, but it might be something that's, I'm sorry about the dog. I'm
That's okay. I can
present
ignore them.
present with kids, but not able, you know, they're not able to name. And certainly with the population you're working with, I would imagine, protecting other people.
Mhm.
And so with adults, I often hear, my mother, blah, 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 blah. But she's wonderful. Like, I just, don't get me wrong, or my husband, or like holding back, you know, on information. And when I sense that, and sometimes even before, I'll say, you know, I may or may never meet this, your husband, your wife, your mother. But I know that you need a space to tell your story. And I'm listening to your impression and your experience. I'm not
Mhm.
making assumptions or formulating an opinion about that other person. And um, and I want you to know that if or when I ever did meet them, I'll create my own experience and relationship with them, um,
Mhm.
so that you're free to vent. And I know too that you have an entire complicated relationship with this other human. I know that you love them. So you don't need to protect that or explain that. I mean, of course, talk about it if you need to, but
Mhm.
here's a safe place where you can talk about how much it hurt.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
So let's just take this moment to
yeah.
give you the great feedback why that's so helpful to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because that whole piece that you just shared with me and others I've thought of that you've shared as a new clinician, whoa, what a way to free the client. I mean, obviously it comes at the moment when you notice the client's doing that.
Yeah.
You don't use it as a setup, as a way to introduce it.
You
You
don't.
might,
And sometimes, you know, it depends. You'll just get a sense of whether someone needs to hear that so that they can speak about their story.
yeah, yeah. It's just hearing how you say it is wonderful because it makes me realize that I can create those words in a way that fits me
That's
for
right.
my client. And so I don't have I can hear your experience talking.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah. And I know that you didn't do this at year one.
Nope.
Maybe you did, but I think you're showing me all these wonderful ways that you've learned from the people you've been with. I mean, they've created you, I think, in a sense, the people
Like,
you've been with, because they've
yeah,
pushed you.
the
I
client.
have a I
Yeah,
have
right.
a parent I have a parent that makes me an amazing educator when it comes to child parent relationship training. She makes me feel like I know what the heck I'm doing. The way that we're with each other, the way she asks questions, the way she responds, you know. So she's developing me in a sense. And then I think when that example, and you've given others in other sessions, show your experience. And I need that type of modeling because we're so isolated in our one-on-one offices doing our
Yeah,
work.
I know.
I can't witness your work anywhere else. So this is the only way I can witness an approximation of where I might be going next. You know, because when I left graduate school, I spoke like Gary Landreth when I was doing my play therapy
Yeah.
until I found my own voice
Right.
and my
Oh,
own way.
right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I need to have this additional input to
Mhm.
go, oh, yeah. Yeah. Because I listened to Terry Cotman this week. She's an Adlerian play therapist
Nice.
who came out of the same program I did and realized that's not her personality, is client centered, child centered.
Wow.
She's Adlerian. And
Wow.
so hearing her voice and her way of doing things,
Right.
that's, I guess, how I learn,
Yes, of
you know?
course. Well, and let's even further link that, which is um, as a client, I mean, sometimes I even reflect this to clients, but as a client, I know this too, as first, our goal is to have them never come back, right? And sometimes I have clients say, I was in this situation and like there was Lauren's voice in my ear. There you were, and I say, that's awesome. That is like one of the steps towards, first you'll hear me. It's all about that internalizing that, right? So
Yeah.
first it's external. And I remember sounding like my therapist, using her language, right? Like just and certainly my own supervisors. And yes, I appreciate you putting that out too. Like I know now that it's mostly it's become my own voice, even though like there's all these voices and I've created this little stew, my Lauren stew of voices.
Right.
However,
I think it's a paint set.
a paint set. That's
Totally.
yeah.
Mhm.
And
Mixed media.
I love that. Yeah, mixed media, art supplies, costumes.
Of
Um,
you. Yeah.
the one I'm hearing the most lately is like I'm channeling Yalom because of my, recent experience with him and been doing a lot of reading again of him. And so trying that one on, like he's always been with me in therapy, but like even pushing it a little further. So I,
Mm-hmm.
um, I know it's one of the hardest things about our profession that we don't actually see other people doing it.
Right.
It's so weird. And so I gobble up any chance if there's like a tape of someone or.
Right. Me too. Me too. Yeah. I need that because I do it all the time with my client. I model certain things for my parents,
Yeah.
demonstrate, model, and then practice. And how do you, if you keep isolated in your room and you're newly doing this work, how can you get better unless you see it compared to other things? Because you have to be self-reflective constantly, but you also have to be open and vulnerable to learn and hear how others do it and say it. And that's what I'm doing because I'm so critical, self-critical. And then I have good experiences this week where I got courageous this week. I got courage in my work because last week's TFCBT,
It sounds so good.
yeah, they talk about, are you avoiding the what I got from it is I'm avoiding talking about the sexual abuse.
It's interesting. Just to give you a little, just interject. Today's the last day of a It's online. It's been 4 weeks, and it's an expressive arts. So I forget the title, but it's about trauma. So one of the women, it's two therapists, but one of the trainers, and they put a video and you watch them and then you do their things. But one of the women is very, very trained in TFCBT. And I just watched the final video last night, and she addressed that very thing about the exposure and building um, and how direct to be in the language, say the rape and say
Yep.
anyhow. I want to share it with you because they talk about art interventions.
Oh, I would love that if you
Okay.
can.
I think I'm just give you my login.
Okay, please.
Hmm. Okay.
Because I'm still figuring out who I am in the therapy room, what approach I'm using, because I feel a little stuck in client centered in doing trauma work. But
So hear you. I hear
yeah,
you.
and I'm so not sure trauma focused TBT is going to be the way to go for me for some of my clients. For
And
some, yes, you
yeah,
know. So
and
this week,
yeah.
knowing that I've not put words and addressed why they're even in counseling because I was being so client centered.
Oh yeah.
The two situations I spoke directly about it felt right and okay as my first step, you
Oh,
know?
wonderful.
Yeah.
So tell
Well,
me
one of
about
them,
it.
one was easy because it was a 5-year-old and his mom accidentally brought him on Wednesday when we're not starting until next Wednesday. And
Oh,
they're in the parking lot and I told, I said, oh, you and I have an intake on Friday and I start next Wednesday. But since you're here, let's do a tour. So
that was great.
oh, it was perfect. I'm glad I had the time because he had told me his anxiety was really high. So he
Oh,
scored it above a 10. And then he told me it was below a 5 after we
that's
got to come in here.
beautiful that you didn't just send them away, that you knew there they were, and probably there was a lot of anticipation and
Yeah. And he was here, And so I said, and
beautiful.
I introduced my playroom and I said, and I know you're here because something's changed at your house. And I have a feeling it's very confusing. And you probably feel all these feelings in your body and all these thoughts in your head. I mean, I was being very me for a first time in a long time. And he's like, yeah, right. Because his dad offended on his teen sister and dad's gone. And this was his namesake. And he's struggling with dad being gone. So he wasn't offended on, but he has this big
Yeah,
loss,
of
and I
course.
can't imagine what he's trying to figure out about living in that house right now. So he's going to come.
Tell me what
But
you mean when you said you were being me for the first time in a long time.
um, I'm sitting with a 5-year-old who I know would really embrace this. So I wonder, you're anxious. Is it like a 5 or like, oh, I feel a little bit tight in here? Or was it like, I don't know what this is going to be? I have not done that, but he
Oh,
got it and related to it. You know what I mean?
yes.
Yeah. I have been like in TA sessions mostly in the teenager group. I never thought I would want to work with them, but I'm having success with them.
Mm-hmm.
I always I want to be cool. I want to be accepted. And
I
I don't do goofy things a lot. Sometimes I will do goofy things if they bring it first. Like if they make a face, I'm like, back at you. I actually read a book to a 16-year-old, a children's book, and just saw that she was accepting it. She's into it. And whether she responded, I think she heard what the little story was, but I'm starting to say, I can't, there's no super defined way to do it. And you know how to be with kids. You've done it before. See, before I didn't wear this counselor badge.
I know.
I was doing all kinds of interactive things based on what I saw the child needed.
That,
But now
that,
I'm wearing a counselor badge of responsibility. I'm
that
like,
is
oh, okay.
fascinating to me, Lulu.
Isn't that crazy that I'm like, okay,
No,
I got to make sure I'm
thank
doing
you.
this. I got to make sure I'm doing that. I got to do this.
It reminds me of a friend of mine. So she knew that I had taught at NWAC for a long time, and she was taking on a class somewhere else. And she says, "What do you wear when you go to teach?"
Mm.
And I said, like I don't know, nothing different from when I go to work. I I mean, not that, I think about appearance, I think about presentation, but she said, um, when she goes to teach at the university, she puts shoulder pads in her jacket. She wants to be commanding, but I know her enough to know that I think there's a difference in that she feels like she needs to play a role. She can't just be herself wherever, to do that. She didn't feel confident, and I get that. So she had to try on a role of teacher. So that's what that reminds me of. And I think, oh, I'm so glad you're getting to it, because um, I feel like repeating to you what you said. I know how to work with kids. I know how to be with them and give them just what they need in the moment. So he said something like that. And I'm like, yeah, you do. And I guess because I'm not seeing your sessions, because I'd probably, if we were able to record sessions and I saw you being whatever this counselor shroud you're wrapped in, I would probably be giving you feedback like, where are you? Uh,
Yeah.
and you're finding it, and it didn't occur to me that you weren't being that way, but I love hearing that interaction with the 5-year-old, and you know exactly what to do. And by the way, that person who knows how to do it is exactly who you need to be as the counselor.
Yeah. I know. I don't know what, and I know this, I've been struggling with this since I started, January, February, March.
What
I know that I'm holding back,
I wonder
or
why. Do you know why?
I'm a should person, or what are the rules person. And I feel like, and how do you be a counselor? What is that role like,
Yeah, that's so interesting. It makes tons of sense to me.
Right. Right. Plus my training, I'm coming in 20 years ago, 21 years ago, that was the training I did. But coming now, I've had 20 years of life learning as a part of who I am, not just what I did in graduate school. And so I'm an expert in that area. Maybe I landed there because that's what I knew really well. But as I'm learning about trauma and I'm meeting real human beings in trauma, I have to take in the fact that I can be who I am and do these expressive, like I said, my tripe theater background, I knew what I was doing there. When I used play as a way for children to have occupational therapy experiences, even though it's just play, I know all these things,
You totally know how to
Yeah.
to bridge that, make them safe, make the relationship. That's what you did for that boy. And
Yeah. Yeah. So
oh,
I think this week was a week of leaning into that a little bit more, even with
congratulations.
the 12-year-old, I have a 12-year-old I see on telehealth who comes to me because they were removed from her mom and stepfather's home in Texas. And
Yeah.
the stories are being forced, she and her twin brother were being forced to watch porn. And, but there's none of that coming across right now. And we had trouble connecting in the first home she landed in. Her bio father hasn't seen her since she was 2.
Oh,
She's
okay.
she's 12. But he's engaged to a woman who has her own abuse issues. And yesterday, I got to hear about what it was like for this child to land in that home. And the internet connections and the anxiety I saw was all connected to that. And the dad finally removed his son and his daughter from that home, left her,
I
and now
think
is
you
in his
told me that.
parents' home.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we've had 2 or 3 weeks of post that household, which was disruptive and was really awful. That she started to tell the story about the day that the police came and said, you have 10 minutes to get everything out of your home. But wait a minute, my mom's at Walmart. I can't say goodbye to my mom. Where am I going? So she talked about that
Oh,
today.
God.
She finally talked about that day. A lot of information about this Arkansas place she landed with dad's inappropriate fiance. And then at the end, I was ready to say, I've learned so much about what it's like just recently. I really am interested to know what it was like to live in Texas. And she's the one who said, I think next week I should tell you more about living with my mom. and we hadn't gone anywhere near this before,
That's
you know?
beautiful.
Yeah. So
And it
just,
reflects exactly what I heard in my TFCBT snippets in the last couple of weeks. And she was talking about how, like, it was funny. She was reinforcing that when you're doing the exposure and be direct in your language, you don't just like meet the kid and go, so you're here because you were raped. Like, it's not like, there's
right.
like building the rapport and leading up to it. But once you're there,
Yeah.
to be direct. And she said, and it sounds like this kid did it on her own. She was saying that sometimes just lay the groundwork.
Mm-hmm.
So we've done this, and as part of treatment, I think it's so important that we'll talk about your stepmom. Maybe next week, that's where what we'll talk about. And then they have the, week to prepare. It sounds like she did it on her own.
She did. I was right about to do it. And the interesting thing is, a number of weeks ago, the only thing she talked about the other house in Texas where the abuse allegedly happened was her dog and her worries about her dog. She described this dog. Nobody's going to take care of this dog. But what she said then matches exactly how she was talking about her mother.
Oh, Lulu, that's
Is
beautiful.
she okay? So she wasn't ready.
No,
She was talking about the animal,
right.
right? And then this week, allowing her to be able to talk about how terribly she was treated by this fiance of her father, and everything she was taking from my client was to prove how awful her mother was.
Ugh.
It was so vengeful and terrible. And I was accepting that, her point of view. I was accepting her story. And I think then she realized, oh, okay, Lulu sees how terrible this person was, about how bad she was making my mom look.
Yeah,
And now I'm ready to tell you about my mom.
yeah.
And she's missed her mom. She hasn't had a chance to see her or talk to her
Terrible.
since March.
Oh, God.
Right. And so she's still hanging out there. So I'm curious to learn when she's ready to tell me, because they've been charged, they've been charged with something. And for her, she's like, there was no reason for me to be taken from my family, you know?
I have a couple questions.
Yes.
One is, because I hear things and I wonder if you do. Based on these courageous and impactful moments you've had in the last week or so, I mean, really, just what learning are you bringing forward? What wisdom will you bring forward with you? Is that too vague a question?
Mm-mm.
Let's start with, the boy.
um, as in December and January, when I first start with clients, I love the new beginning. This is my first new client in a little while. And this is wonderful because I've been hanging out with all these weeks and months of COVID telehealth or minimal in person. And I finally said, I'm going to take a new client, because now I can take all of this learning and just
There you go.
try things new and different and do a start. Because I felt like I have TSCBT and I have to pick a client to do it with. Do I take a client who I have all this rapport with, who I felt like I haven't making progress because I
Here.
haven't been
Yeah.
courageous? Do I do that? And this was a new, fresh start in a sense, of
Yeah.
a little guy, a 5-year-old. And it's a different thing because it's not his physical sexual
Uh-huh.
abuse or physical
So
abuse.
a little less at stake in case
Yeah,
you're not like going
yeah.
to necessarily hurt him terribly or.
Right, but I also see this opportunity now to balance out this whole. See, Adlerian play therapy is directive and non-directive,
Yeah, I imagine.
and I think that's where I will have more progress with my clients if I feel more comfort, because I haven't been comfortable being directive,
I hear you.
and so learning how to recognize those moments,
Yeah.
I'm ready to start trying to do that. And with him, I feel like I have an open place to do that, starting fresh with a new client,
Yeah.
at the beginning of his.
And that it was really received. He felt
Mhm.
he felt seen and heard.
Mm-hmm.
and you were doing exactly what you know how to do. And it's interesting, you're reminding me that when I, thank you. When I was watching these videos, I was telling you about the TFCBT in art. Um, I have been having a response to that course,
Oh, yeah?
which is it's so directive and so
Yes.
goal oriented.
Yeah.
And I don't do that. So, but I realize that without really pinpointing it, I have been coming from a place of judgment where they don't know how to actually do art therapy. And now I'm like listening to you going, because I was just about to say to you, it's so great to be able to incorporate some directives in to like completely non-directive. I don't know if that would work. Even when we really think about it, you're probably never completely non-directive.
Right.
um,
Right.
and yeah, anyway, it gives me something to think about, and I appreciate that, you help me articulate that I'm having a response to being more directive, but I can be more directive at times too. And yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, and yeah, and you had a good experience with it. So I think what I heard exactly that, like just, I mean, I love that you realized with a new person, you have a little more like opportunity to be someone new yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Right.
I also, having that success with that 12-year-old, it's not too late to make those shifts because we
Yeah.
had so many computer connection issues at the old house. This house is amazing. And she's actually able to connect with me when she wasn't before. So, in a sense, I can knock off those 4 sessions and just think of where we are now,
Mhm.
just establishing rapport, you know.
And even so, even though that was always your goal, it was just, I mean, literal like internet connections was interfering.
Oh, it was awful.
Oh God,
It was
that's
so disturbing to me because
mhm.
it was just really bad. And it's really perfect right now. It's such a perfect, quiet room she has. She's sitting on the kitchen floor several times, where people walking in, and just where she is safer.
Yeah, there you
It's a
go.
much safer
And
place.
you can see how that's changing, how she's sharing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I'm like, sigh of relief because she was a client that first of all, I never wanted to take her. When I first read the intake, I'm like, because she's on medication, she has these diagnoses. And my supervisor is like, oh, that's a case I would have grabbed at. And it turns out on paper, it's not the person sitting in front of me,
Mhm.
you know? So not to be fearful.
I know. I remember that feeling. I remember
Yeah.
being like on paper, like I don't have enough experience to. I don't even know
hmm
what that diagnosis is. Like, I don't know what that medication is. Like in my mind, it would be some like insane, like hard to connect with person, and then I meet and like just a kid,
Right, right.
kid with a story. Mm-hmm. Well, that's cool. You, I'm. What wisdom will you bring forward with your experience with her?
Well, I think she showed me that we can talk about the stuff,
Yeah.
whereas I was holding back because I don't go looking at the interviews. I don't dig deep in that piece because that's part of the thing. One of the elements, besides all her diagnoses and her medications, that scared me is looking at the type of abuse they have.
Oh, okay.
I don't do that. And part of that, I was hearing the story or reading it somewhere. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. But she's not even there yet. And just like she's not there yet, I can be with her there and we could both take on the small pieces,
Yeah.
and the small exposures together in a sense.
Of course. And yeah, that's I heard too that I mean, I remember you talking about the dog, so it's not like it's only in retrospect, in my experience,
Mm-hmm.
that You knew what she was doing, talking about the dog.
Well, I wanted to hear about relationships or pieces, because she would jump back to old memories, like a little story when I was a child, and then the dog, and then the dog was a little bit of a bigger story where I can say things like, "You're really caring about that. You
That's
have
right.
worries, and it just did make sense after I heard about her telling her story of her mom. It made more sense to me.
Good.
Um,
I just want you to know that I think, but I mean, maybe I can look back on our tapes, but you did know what she was telling you by talking about the
uh,
dog. Um,
yeah,
maybe not as concretely, but you knew she was, I mean, maybe we didn't use these words. I mean, and the dog is it's not nothing. It's not like little to her. It was a big deal, but she was definitely testing the waters. Like, can you hold this?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Um, and also, like, it was too direct to talk about mom, but she's gonna share that level of feeling through dog.
yeah. She's in that protective stance about her mother.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
when she was able then to talk about, let's just talk about who the troublemaker was, it's that fiance of dad, and that we could sit together.
yeah, yeah.
That person's attacking her mother, who
Ugh,
she didn't get to say goodbye to, who she loves. No matter what abuse occurred, we needed to partner on the fact that
yeah.
nobody attacks her mom. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that is exactly that is so confusing, and you know that I mean that's the trauma bonding, like just and despite what was happening in the home, the love for her parent,
Mm-hmm.
well, it's just so much there, love and longing, and maybe she's compartmentalizing, or maybe she just doesn't know how, like, she hasn't integrated my mom's a demon, and she shouldn't.
Right.
And
Right.
people external to her are trying to get her to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Oh yeah, that's exactly what was being stacked.
and
That
she
that.
should have space for your mom loves you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, people and whatever, I don't know the story, but even, and you get to love her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
And at
Exactly.
some point you'll integrate she'll get to where she'll have to integrate what mom did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Because she does this really wonderful thing where she continues to add stories of the past into her current storytelling. Like, she has a twin brother, and at one time she and her twin brother were jumping on a bed and off a bed, I think, at 2, and landed, somehow hurt their mother in the process. But broke her back. She had to have surgery. This is what she says. We broke her back. She had to go have surgery, have pins and things put in her back, right, to repair it.
Wow.
Then she says, but I realized it wasn't my fault. I didn't break my mother's back. My grandmother did whatever, like put us on the bed. Didn't know mom was under there.
Good
So
for
she's
her.
clearly identifying what she thought was her responsibility. So we're talking about responsibilities.
Yeah.
I was 2. There was somebody else involved.
Yeah.
It really wasn't me. And I clearly could see that she truly doesn't blame herself for that, but she has that strict memory about the
Yeah.
hospitalization and all of that, but
Mm-hmm.
clearly saying it wasn't my fault,
Mm-hmm.
because she was connected to the fact that her mother had broken her back at one time. And when she heard that the mom ran away from the police, maybe they didn't catch her right away. My mom can't run from anybody,
Yeah.
not realizing. And I didn't correct this. You can hide from the police. You don't have to actually run from them. But so she really pulls in all of these pieces
That's
in
great.
such a great way. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
our sessions, it's hard to get started. So I have to figure out what's a great way for me just to be quiet and let her go with it,
Yeah.
you know? So I think that's the part. I want a little easier entry into, hey, how's school? How are you? How's the new house?
how do you start with her? Like what, just whatever comes up?
Yeah, it was in the beginning. It was easier because she just got to the new house,
Yeah.
so tell me what's going on. And she used to have art supplies. She no longer has them because
Oh,
they're at their house.
uh-huh.
Yeah, so it's kind of like uh, if I can get her to talk about school, it's good because what's going on with school because she's a great student, loves it, and then I ease back enough that she'll then find a way to get some. We kind of go
Yeah,
somewhere.
it always leads to something. No
Yeah.
matter what, you can always find your way to something.
Yeah, she always comes on though, checking her emails to make sure she's got everything done for school. And I said, well, go ahead, take a minute to do that because I can see the eyes are.
Okay, so stop right there. Because, wow. All right. I'm so aware that here's how our session went. Your eyes were darting around looking for that calendar,
Yeah,
which was distracting you in the moment enough to not, you should say, I just can't be present. It's weird. It's just the paper. I like looking at it. That led to sharing that you went on Facebook and read your sister's post. And we went off in that direction, which, okay, so here's like a meta analysis of our session, right? Like just
yeah.
reflecting back. So I just said that no matter what you start with, it leads somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yep.
and you just told me, she starts by looking at her calendar and you say exactly what I said. Do you need time to look for it?
Yeah.
Want to take time to do that so that you can
That's
be here.
crazy.
Isn't that amazing?
I wouldn't have picked up on it unless you said it just now.
So, yeah. And, oh my God, that is crazy. And then you let that go, but then, oh, I think that this is great. You let that go, the actual paper calendar. As soon as you let that go, and if this is a visual image, it's like you took that layer off. And then under that layer was, well, I'm also distracted about my sister's
Mm-hmm.
Facebook post.
Mm-hmm.
So that more like there was like some surface thing. I'm not saying the calendar's not important, but it's certainly probably not as distracting as your sister's post that you can't attend to right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you took off that layer and then, well, then there's also this. And we did talk about that a little. And part of me felt like, oh, that's our friendship conversation. That'll be for later. But here we were talking about it. But I think it was so important to acknowledge it and say, I get that. That's where you are. What am I going to say? We'll talk about that later. Lulu, that's not for now. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like, no, it's what you showed up with. Even though
Yeah.
this is supervision, it's
Yeah.
what you
I
showed
like that
up with.
because that's the thing, because I'm so worried. Well, am I supposed to have something ready for her? How am I going to start? But she shows up, and where she shows up is where we can really start
Yep.
and get somewhere.
And it's crazy. And last night, I've been so busy. And last night I'm like, I have a session with Lulu tomorrow. And I went through the exact same thing. Should I be prepared? Should I have something ready? Should I look up an activity? I actually came up with something in my mind that we're not obviously haven't done. And but same thing. And then let it go because here you are with stuff
Mm-hmm.
to talk about that led into it was calendar, then Shia, and then there was a link and I can't remember. Well, but it'll be on video, so maybe I'll be able to look at it.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, right? To look at what linked um, the conversation about Shia into, oh, I do know. It was, I've got a tidbit of, this is my tidbit of the week. This was about allowing people to speak about their experience of a loved one without worrying
Yes.
that they're going to change the opinion of the person listening.
Mm-hmm.
That was,
Mm-hmm.
that's how, so that's great that you were talking, like, look where that went. You said, That is so helpful. And that, you told me that reflects, you had a sense that that reflect a lot of experience from me. And then we started talking about how you are now allowing some of your experiences to be present in your sessions, and you're acknowledging more strength in yourself as Lulu the counselor, not whatever external thing you thought you had to be put
That
on.
degree, yeah, that license on the wall thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So super interesting and powerful, I think. I can't remember when it happened to me, but I knew at some point that I was going to, when I was at OGC, I'd be like I looked like the perfect little Kool-Aid drinker, and then I always thought, here's the virtue of people can't see us doing our work. And I would always be like, I'll type those notes. And I was always like, no one knows what's going on in my room. And I don't mean that in a nefarious way. Like
Yes. Yes.
I'll do me as a counselor. Thanks for your your direction on how you do it. Anyhow,
Uh-huh.
I'm aware of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't go into our bodies today, but I think that was okay. I think it just,
Yeah.
I'm letting go of, like, I had some plans and they didn't happen, but so much goodness did happen.
Right. And that's one of the thoughts I had about you as a supervisor. I'm wondering, because I've experienced 1 hour sessions with my supervisors as well as you, and then I have had 2 hour sessions. And sometimes I find the 2 hours allows us to have a lot of room for a
Absolutely.
lot of things. And I don't know, I mean, obviously you'll have LACs who need to do, for every 10, they need to do an hour. So you can book 2 hours, if they could both afford
Fabulous
it or pay,
idea.
right? So I think that might be something you would lean into.
Yeah.
The other piece would be structure versus not structure. I have two different clinicians who are my supervisors. One doesn't necessarily structure it, but the other one sort of, we're all over. And when I show up all over, and both of us are all over, sometimes I come out going, did I get enough out of that?
Okay.
Whereas the other one, I sometimes do a little more prep. Well, I'll write down a couple of notes and questions about a particular client, because she has such vast experience with children and play therapy in this setting. I want to squeeze every bit out of her that I can. But at the same time, I like the other days sometimes with the other clinician.
Great.
But so knowing or having your LAC talk about their needs, and you already addressed this before. Is it more structure? Is it less structure? But knowing what would work. And I think I like the ebb and flow of it, because that's me. I'm a mood dresser, a mood eater, and a mood clinician.
That's awesome.
So it works. But there are times that I prepped my clinician supervisor by saying, this is really what's on my mind. I really need to be able to work on that. Yeah. So she knows what I'm bringing next week.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I feel like I want to be mindful of your time. I know you have to go. And this does feel like a really quick, can we have another session so that we can actually do the feedback part and not rush away from?
So do you want me to look at what you sent?
Sure. I mean, honestly, I really just liked it better than any other ones I pulled up, because I glanced at it. So sure you can. And what I'm saying right now, Lulu, is that it feels so, I love everything you're saying. It feels like we are journeying into feedback for me with what you're doing. And I would not feel good about rushing the ending of our connect. I mean, obviously I'm going to see you and talk to you, but in this format, right? So if you're open to it, let's meet again.
I would like that very much.
Okay, good. Yay. This was so powerful.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I just encourage you to just be the Lulu counselor. That's your gift.
Mhm.
Keep doing
Yeah.
that.
Do you need this form to be scanned and sent back to you?
Not one bit. I just
It's
have
a guide for
it was
conversation.
honestly like, yeah, it was
Okay.
just that one looked a little kinder or less formal than other ones that I was pulling up, but I
Okay.
only just glanced at it. I just thought, are there things on there? Here's what I want you to do. Are there things on there that you think, ooh, good area to give Lauren feedback on? Let me pull that out and I'll give her feedback on that. And
Okay.
that's it. And if something that you want to give me feedback on isn't on there, by all means. But yeah, maybe make some notes and just think, it's just a guideline. It's not what a structure we're going to follow and
Okay.
score. So
Sounds really good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and if you want to talk at all about your experience, I know you have friends and a therapist and all that and family, but here, because I really, I had feelings when I saw that post.
Yeah. Yeah. And she actually texted while we are talking. I had texted her
Oh,
this morning to
okay.
talk. So
Okay.
she's free Saturday.
Oh, good.
So we'll
Yeah, I
chat
had
about it.
feelings on behalf of you when I read it.
I mostly want to
Wondered.
just cry, but I already put my mascara on this morning. And so I probably need to have a good cry when I get home.
Okay. You'll take off your counselor mask and go cry.
Yes.
Okay.
And just be me and have
Okay.
that big sister moment, family
That's a
moment. And then,
lot.
mhm.
I
Yeah,
guess
she
if
just
you
published a
don't.
book. She just published a book at the end of that journey on, it's on Amazon, her poems. And
Beautiful.
so I'm going to get it and read it.
I mean, I guess what didn't occur to me when I was reading it was that you didn't know the story. Like, it didn't occur to me you wouldn't have known some of this story.
Some of it. Yeah. I'm familiar with it and the dynamic of that cult she was pulled into because I suffered on the outside of that cult. But to see it in her words and the ages and stages of it,
I know.
we had not talked about it before.
God, so brave of her. It makes me cry too.
Mhm.
And yeah.
So I'm just so glad to be able to talk to her about it.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. So,
I know. Okay.
okay.
Well, I know you'll get through your day and you can put it aside and cry your mascara off later.
Actually, I'll probably do that for the drama effect.
Yeah,
And then look,
definitely. Yeah,
see how
why
it,
wipe it off and then cry? Let's get some
right.
black streaks going down.
Let's get that and do a self-portrait around it.
Send it to me. I have one just like that after my Yalom. Amber or someone, Amber said, how'd it go? And I just texted her back a picture of me. I'll send it to you. It's like,
Okay. Yeah, and look at Shaya's. I think her picture on Facebook is a self-portrait of her.
okay, I will.
Yeah, you should look at that. Okay, thank you, Miss Lauren.
All right. Love you. Bye-bye.
We'll sign up for next week.
Yeah.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.